On this episode of RŌL Radio, we have a true original and master of the Spider Guard, Mauricio Tinguinha Mariano. Listen as he walks us through what it was like being part of the earliest Gracie Barra team, fighting in the adult divisions when he was only 16, his decision on making BJJ his life's work, and developing and expanding the technique that made him famous, the Spider Guard. With over 30 years' experience, Professor Mauricio shares with us his knowledge, stories, and passion for Jiu Jitsu. Here is RŌL Radio with one of the originals, Mauricio Tinguinha Mariano.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
Gary, we're live. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, I'm kind of stoked about this because years ago, and I'm talking about 15, 17 years ago, when I was a white belt, I had a DVD on Spider Guard. And that was the very first DVD that I ever had. And I watched the DVD probably, I don't know, 100, 150 times trying to master things. And today,
you're doing pretty well.
Well, today we get to chat with the creator, a person who contributed singularly to Spider Guard for what it is today.
Yeah,
Professor, great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. It's my pleasure to be on the show, and I'm looking forward to talk to you guys today.
Tell us why Spider Guard? Because I mean, I remember years ago, and again, this is going a long back. There was no such thing as Spider Guard. And when I discovered it years ago, it was very different, very new, very, very unique to what everybody else was doing. And yet you had it mastered to the point where it was very interesting. And it caught my eye, caught eyes of many others.
Yeah, it's like I didn't create the Spider Guard, right? And there's stuff in my history. Let me start from the beginning of my history of the Spider Guard. So I started training as 11 years old, so very young age. But the place I started training, they didn't have a kids class. So I started training in the adult class. So I used to train judo before, and I transitioned to Jiu Jitsu. So being small in an adult class as a kid, so I always on the bottom. I want to be on top, right? And then once I'm on the bottom, and back the time, we probably just have one type of open guard. It was the one you have the hand on the collar, foot on the hips, one foot on the arm, right? So I was on the bottom. I couldn't, the times I get a close guard, people open my guard pretty easy. And from there, just get smashed. So I was in a survival way. I started using my feet to keep people the distance, right? The feet on the hips, feet on the arm. So slowly I start feeling very comfortable with the control. And then the only open guard, like I said, it was IC on that time. This is probably back in 89, 80s, like that's the year I started training probably, right? Was the open guard with the foot on the hips, foot on the arm. So it's if you think about that basically open guard control, and this basically open guard, I like to say this open guard, basically open guard control is the mother of the open guards. It's very, if you move your foot from the hips to the arm, because one foot is already on the arm, it's the Spider Guard, right? Of course, the control of the collar, you switch the control to the sleeve. And again, I want to control that collar, but I couldn't hold that collar. People are stronger, they break that grip. So the sleeve was my safe zone. So I start in a survival way to use that, and I didn't have a knowledge of the Spider Guard. Later on, I remember I seen a tournament, Roberto Trive. It's a big guy, long legs, and I started seeing. Then I started realizing, that's something there, right? Because there was no tapes, right? There was no structural DVDs. There's no information there on the school training. There was closing guard, a little bit of open guard. So naturally, I started doing that. And then later on, I started seeing some people in tournaments sometimes doing, and that was my beginning of the Spider Guard.
And I assume this is way back in Brazil at this point.
Yes, that's back in Brazil, 89, so 90.
What did people think when they saw you doing this and trying this at the gym or maybe even at the tournament, right? Because in the beginning, Spider Guard was kind of frowned upon. It wasn't the cool thing, right? It was considered as stalling in even in a way.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So it was a lot of hate behind the Spider Guards because they sleeve, you know, like they hold your sleeve. So they, you know, they same as some of the stuff happen now. So people was, you know, talking bad about the Spider Guard, but I was doing, you know, I think I just started caught attention from the people when I was a purple belt, right? Like as a kid fighting tournaments, everything happened too fast. I used here and there. Blue belt, I got my purple belt on the 17th. So as a blue and a purple belt, I started using, and then people, you know, start paying more attention because people couldn't pass my guard, right? And as a blue belt, I some tournaments as a juvenile, by 16, 17, I was fighting as my division and sometimes an open division. And the way I was getting away, because I was used to training people bigger than me, I was using the Spider Guard, right? So that's what these people start, you know, talking more and realize, and people start using here and there. But there was a lot of people talking bad about the Spider Guard. It's something's coming new. They don't know how to deal. And the reality is, the Spider Guard is very strong control. That's the thing I like the Spider Guard, because it was a progress, right, on my way, right? I didn't have nobody tell me, okay, that's how you play the Spider Guard. Here, how we doing this. It was just survival way. So my first phase, it was just survive. Don't let people pass my guard. I don't want to get smashed. Once I started getting comfortable, I started using attacks. So every time I played Spider Guard, I never was the guy playing Spider Guard. It's just control. I was getting the distance, control the distance, and from there attack, right? Triangles, omoplata, sweeps. So I never, you know, I didn't have many people talk to me like, oh, he's just holding, because I was moving attack. But I understand with the control we have on the Spider Guard, if I want, and the thing I say, like, look, if I want to play a guard, because the best way for you people not pass your guard, you not attack. You just stay on defense. So it makes it very hard. If you just stay on defense, right, it's hard to pass, right, to deal with those grip, those controls.
How are you getting better at this? Because I mean, so I'm thinking about this. What you talk about is self-improvement, essentially, right? You didn't have anybody who tell you, put your foot there, move your hips there, change this, attack this. There was nobody telling you any of this. This is you discovering on your own. And today, sometimes people actually struggle with this because we have videos, we have DVDs, we have websites, we have books, we have everything, and people still don't have that skill of self-improvement. How to discover these things. How did you do it?
Yeah, this is like the environment in Brazil, right? You know, you guys train in Jiu Jitsu, and if you notice, a lot of Brazilians, they don't have a system in place, right? You go from one to here to here to here. So everything in Brazil is kind of, not now, right? I'm talking about 20 years ago. I've been living here for 20 years. This before 25, 30 years. So we pretty much, we train, we warm up, and we have one technique and go train. That was back the time. There was not a system in place, right? So I was raised on the environment, not just me, we were raised on the environment, right? We learn a technique here, and from there, we start figuring out stuff, right? To tell the truth, I only understood about the Spider Guard when I did the DVD. Because you know, when I moved to the US, I have some people propose to do some DVDs about the Spider Guard, stuff like that. So I sit down one day and, all right, let me see what I know from the Spider Guard. And I start doing it. And then I start realize, like, oh my God, I didn't know I knew so many details, so many stuff from the Spider Guard. So I really mastered the Spider Guard when I start teaching the Spider Guard, because that's when most of the time I have to go back how I do this. So I have to go back and understand. I remember one of my favorite sweeps I do, and again, from Brazil, the system we have over there is not organized. We don't have a name. So as sweep, I have a real hard fight as a purple belt. I was fighting the guy. This guy was from, back the time was, I think the school was called Masters, but it was Alliance. right? Jacaré school was called Masters. So this was a kid fighting the feather division. He was well known to fighting his division and his open division. And he always doing well. So I got my first fight with him. And I was the underdog, right? Like, oh, you got to fight this guy. So I did a Spider Guard. And that was a real, he couldn't pass my guy. We couldn't pass. I got a sweep on him. And tell the truth, I don't know how I did the sweep. And I remember I got the tape from that sweep. And I said, oh my God, I think I figured out the problem, like what I couldn't let it go to the hands. It's pretty much like I stretch one leg, hook one leg under and go under and upside down and trying to go on top. And from that day, once I see what I did, I went back and I did from purple, brown to black belt all the way. That became my goal sweep, right? Like that our sweep was the one like, but that came during that fight, the situation, right? I couldn't figure out, I couldn't find the space. He's getting pressure, but at the same time, I couldn't do my attacks. So I have to get under him, invert. So that's kind of like, that's how I learned it, right? Like doing the situation, doing, going back. And once I sit down to do the Spider Guard, and then I understood I had a system on my head, but it's on my head, right? So then I have to break it down, like why I stretch one leg and not the other leg, why I'm doing this. So then I understood what I was doing. And the minute I start teaching and helping people to learn, that's what I really understood and the system. And going back what you said, the problem with people, the Spider Guard, it's you learning one technique from Spider Guard here and there, right? That's the problem. So do you know Spider Guard? Yeah, I know Spider Guard. So I know the triangle from the Spider Guard. But they don't know the whole, the control, the distance, all that kind of stuff. That's the reason people know just a little and they struggle with that. Because Jiu-Jitsu is so complex, you can go in this world just as a Spider Guard and spend there month and month just to learning the whole system, right? And majority of people, they know what is a Spider Guard. They can do maybe one technique, but they don't understand the whole, all the details there to play the full game.
Do you think that's pretty common today, that people spend less time understanding the system, but they focus on individual techniques? I mean, you said you can spend months and months. I think you can spend years and years to understand, whether it's a Spider Guard or deep half guard or passing guard or over under, whatever, whichever system you take, you can spend years trying to understand it and then develop it in your own way. Do you think that people spend less time today than they used to?
Yes, for sure, right? Because it's too much information, right? I'm always the guy, always looking, right? Like the way, and I'm very visual because that's the way I learn, right? I prefer if you have a structural DVD and if you have a guy, same guy, well, this is the guy, he can show you how to do this game. This is the guy finding doing this game. I like to watch people doing, and that's how I really learn. Then somebody is just talking, right? But answer your question, and your question is like, yeah, it's too much information now. Mm-hmm. And on my time, I remember going, like before the class, I have a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's well known. It's a judo book and a bunch of jiu-jitsu techniques on those books, right? Like triangles and stuff like that. So before people thinking it's already there. So I was looking for those stuff and get those information. But if I was, start training jiu-jitsu at this time, I think I'll be in trouble because I'm going to try to look at everything and getting too much information. So I think you have to make sure you get the foundation first. So you got to have the foundation in all aspects of your game. Top, bottom, attack, escapes. And from there, you can go deep on those kind of games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with, everybody, so they'll look at something like Spider Guard and like you said, they'll learn the triangle and then it's like, okay, I'm done. Now I'm going to go learn a Kimura or now I'm, something else instead of knowing. And Thomas and I were talking a lot last week about concepts. So instead of learning the concepts behind everything, it's like, okay, I have that one submission and now I can move on. I can buy some more DVDs on something else.
Exactly.
So what do you advise to your students? Like, what do you tell them if they say, well, I want to learn this and this and this and this and this and this, and then never, I feel like that's a common question for an instructor today, right? Like, do I need to learn this? Do I need to learn this? What do you tell them?
So, you know, I've been training jiu-jitsu for a long time. And, you know, I wish I knew some of the stuff I know now, but the less you know, right? Because sometimes you want to get all the information, right? Like you go into war and then you get a machine gun, you get a grenade, you get all those kind of fun, but you only know to use one gun, right? So once you come to the war, you're going to try to use all this stuff. You don't know how to set up this stuff. So you got to make sure there's no way you can go away from the foundation. So nothing's perfect, but I say the foundation of jiu-jitsu is close to be perfect, right? Because if you're doing everything, if you have the right posture, if you have the right all the position, like let's say, like a Spider Guard, right? I'm inside the close guard. If I'm doing everything right from the close guard, from the top, to open the guard, to pass the guard, I'm never gonna have the chance to get to the Spider Guard. If I'm doing the basics correct, right? So the foundation, you must learn the foundation 100%, right? So what I tell my students is get the foundation strong, and that's kind of the environment you learn from Carlinhos Gracie in Barra, right? Because remember I said, the environment was like, we learn the technique here and there, but I'm talking about once we already had the foundation, right? The basics, jiu-jitsu, we have to learn. And then from there, because I like to say, a lot of people, they try to pick a game. I would like to do this. Like, the truth is, like, you don't pick the game, I mean, you don't choose. Your body is the one that's going to, your type of body, how you position from the bottom. You like to sit up more. You like to keep your back on the mat, right? You like to invert. Some people, natural, they feel comfortable being upside down, right? So we can just I have the eyes today to see like, this, I can realize a good technique, but I know it's not going to fit to my game, right? But I know that the technique is good, but I know this technique here is good and fits to my game, right? But a lot of times the beginners, they don't have they don't have that vision, right? Like, they don't understand what's going to fit to them. So the foundation, you keep building your game on the foundation, and then from there you can start getting more of those information outside, but bring it to the foundation. Because end of the day, you're gonna use 80%. You'll be a foundation, and the rest is gonna be right. You're gonna add for that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of students today, and I might be criticized for this comment, but there's a lot of students, I think, that will get a DVD from so-and-so, whoever they are, and is like, oh, he is so good at this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to watch these DVDs. There's 200 techniques in there, and I'm going to try to master what they do. But often it's underestimated the fact that my body is different than theirs. My brain works in a different way than theirs does. And I don't necessarily always will be able to translate the same mobility and same processing, as that instructor did in that DVD.
Yes, 100% agree. And that's the problem with the white belts today, and they don't see that, right? So that's a big problem. So it's so good we have so many information today. So, today I think it's already proved, it took me 10 years to get a black belt, right? I was 11 years old when I started. As a 21, that's the year. I mean, when I was 21, that's when I got my black belt. I think today, because there's more information out there, people are getting the belts faster. So maybe in 5 years, 6 years, it's possible to get a black belt because all this information. But I think that's when it comes. You have to have a coach, right? A professor that you trust, and they're gonna give you the direction you have to follow. Because the problem, you can, as a white belt, you can choose. You don't have the knowledge to pick what you need to do. So you gotta make sure you train in the school. You trust your coach. You trust your training partners, the higher belts, so you follow that direction. So it will be the easy way. That's what I believe.
I don't think you'll find your technique or your game, your foundation from watching videos. The only way you're going to find it, and I'm a blue belt at this point, and I'm just starting to figure things out a little bit, and it's from being on the mat. Sitting in front of the computer is never going to get anyone there. You got to get out and get on the mat and see what works best.
Mat time, it's very important in jiu-jitsu, very important.
Let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning. I'm curious, and listen, I've been on the mat for 20 years, but you've been on the mat for, what, 30 plus, right?
30 plus, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How were things back then when you were starting? As you started at 11, but, let's talk about somewhere there, 15, 17, where you were a little bit older. Maybe, you're starting to discover things. You have blue, purple belt somewhere in that area. How are things back there in Brazil comparing to what they are today here in U.S.?
Oh, big difference. Big difference. Yeah. So, like the 90s, right? Like I see as a very special moment for jiu-jitsu. So it was small, right? Like everybody know each other. Think about, we started in jiu-jitsu. There's no national, there's no world championship, there's no Pan American, just local tournaments, right? Some local tournaments for us is like a world championship, right? Like we're doing tournaments. So it's I think the best way to describe it's 100% passion, right? So we have a group of people training. Our tribal was very small. And you love jiu-jitsu, right? The Gracie family has a strong influence in everybody. Doesn't matter if you train under Gracie or not train under Gracie, So that's how the acai started, the Gracie diet, all this stuff. Everybody was doing the same thing, right? Because the Gracie family has a strong influence in all the jiu-jitsu communities in Brazil. And I'm from Rio. So Rio was the mecca of jiu-jitsu on that time in the 90s, right? So I was small tournaments. It was Carson Gracie, Gracie Barra, Alliance. Back the time was Masters, it was Jacaré. So it was like 4 or 5 schools very strong and competing against each other. But at the same time, we were very close. Right? Like we respect each other. There's a lot of competition. There's no cross training, right? We train in one place and there's no way you're going to train in another place. Then that was the beginning, right? On my beginning and see that, right? Then slowly start having some challenge. The Luta Livre guys start coming challenge jiu-jitsu. That's one of the jiu-jitsu guys start having some cross training. Some guys from Carson Gracie School, from Jacaré School, they need to start getting together to the challenge with the Luta Livre. Tournaments start coming. The first state championship happened in Rio. The first national. So I believe in '93, it was the first national championship, right? 95, it was the first world championship. So then the things start. We from very small, things start getting a little bit bigger. People start getting more serious in training. The only people who were training, let's say, as professional when they start was the Gracie family. That's the only one who make money with jiu-jitsu to be able to train as a professional. Slowly, when the tournaments start coming, better tournaments start coming, people start sponsor. So more people start getting serious in training, and then slowly, we start seeing the team is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the rest of history.
When was your first tournament?
My jiu-jitsu tournament. I remember my first judo tournament, jiu-jitsu tournament. I don't remember exactly which it was. No.
Did you do the '93 nationals?
Yes.
The very first one.
Yes, I was a purple belt. Yes.
You were a purple belt.
Yes.
Juvenile back then, right?
Yeah, so I have a very my beginning as a purple belt was challenged because there was no juvenile purple belt, right? So once you're purple belt, you're gonna fight with adults. So I got my blue belt as a 15, and I got my purple belt as a 17. So from 15 to 16, almost 17, I was fighting juvenile as a blue belt. So I was pretty much almost 2 years without losing tournament. And then when I transitioned to the purple, I jumped from the blue belt juvenile to the purple belt adult.
Did they have weight divisions back then or no?
Yes, always they have a weight division. Yeah, for Jiu-Jitsu tournament, yes. For Vale Tudo, back the time, it was no weight division, right? But Jiu-Jitsu tournament, yes.
So what's your recollection of the very first nationals in '93?
So '93, it was in the, if I believe, in the club, right? And it was like, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was in the club. And this tournament, I don't know if you see there's a fight of Renzo Gracie versus De La Riva, old tape. So that was the first national, the '93. So that was everybody. I remember the first time I see a flyer for a BJJ tournament, first national, like everybody, like, oh my God, this is real, because we don't see flyers, don't see nothing. It's just like, as the tournament happened this day, you go there, right? So that was a lot of people, and a lot of people, probably was 300 people, right? For us, like, man, this is big. Black belts fighting purple belts, blue belts. So that was very special. And the tournament was organized by that time, right? So we have people, the referees with the T-shirt with the tournament, with teams. So that was the first time you see like a real organization. It looks like we're gonna make it. So it was very nice.
Who were the referees at that time? How did that selection go? I assume they were black belts.
Yeah, the black belts. So I don't remember now, but all the referees, they were fighting tournaments. They finish the fight, get changed, and go there. You see a lot of that. So it wasn't like specific. Like today, we have people just in tournaments for referee. Back the time, the fighter was the referee, right? There was not that many people. So we need like people finish the fight and all right, get changed, let's go. That was the way.
How things are different now versus the first nationals that you look back. Like obviously you are at Pan Am's Worlds these days. You know what they look like. What's the big difference for you?
So the big difference is organization, right? As a organization, I have tournaments. I went to fight. Supposed to fight at 10 a.m. I fight 10 p.m. So that was, so think about this, right? The weigh-in was a day before. The organization was real bad. The referees, they were not too good because it was, like I said, like people from the team, right? So we have a lot of problem with that. A referee from one school against a guy, I fight against one guy from Carson Gracie, and the referees from Carson. If there's no points, it's gonna have a problem, right?
I heard there were some interesting, controversial, decisions between the referees and conversations, and some of them got into a little bickering here and there. Was that a common event during those tournaments?
I remember one funny story. I remember that was my first tournament I went to watch Jiu-Jitsu, and I was a kid, and I saw it was a fight. I can't remember. I think it was a guy from Carson, Bebel Duarte, fighting somebody. Something happened, and the referee and the Carson Gracie started having a discussion, and then a fight broke up right on the mat. People jump in, both teams. I was watching. I was like, wow. That I remember very clear. I remember see some of the fights on the mat, right? But I assume that's what the thing Carlinhos did well. I assume we start having nationals, we have a sponsor, so we have to stop with that. With no sense, right? So the fight is stop. You still have some fights, and I don't know if you see old tapes, you see sometimes people fighting at the gym, at the school. Like has one famous video where Ryan Gracie fighting in the backyard. So all those fights, most of the time, there was a problem happened at the tournament. And they're like, all right, we can fight here because they sponsor. So they set up like, let's go there.
We'll settle it later.
Yeah, and then they go there. That was the most.
That's great.
So at least the fight stopped at the tournaments.
When you were fighting as a purple belt against adults, that was like the first time you maybe had a couple setbacks, right?
Oh yeah. My first fight as a purple belt, I got tapped, and I cry like a baby. Oh,
it's all right. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Thomas makes me cry all the time.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. So it took me like 2 tournaments to figure out like all right, I gotta, those are man, like different power, different stuff, and then from there, I start adapt for the new situation. But it took like two tournaments to really understand the difference. There was a difference.
What was the difference? I mean, strength-wise, did you feel like you were being overpowered?
Yes, I felt a big difference. Of course, level 2, right? I remember that first tournament, the national 1993. I have a fight with the guy's nickname is Ratinho, Otávio Souza. I think he's living in Italy now. So my first fight as a purple belt. He was a purple belt for years. That was his last tournament as a purple belt, as adult, right?
And that was your first one.
My first fight, right? So I lost, right? And right after the tournament, he got a brown belt. So that was kind of like, so not just fighting guys real good, but the different power was something new for me to do in the tournament,
Wow, those are some amazing memories, man.
Yes.
Going back so many years. Do you still keep in touch with some of those guys that you were training? Well, let me ask you this: who was your typical training partner back then when you were blue and purple belt?
Wow, so everybody. So think about.
That's why I'm asking, because probably you're gonna mention all the black belts that are known these days.
So I'm from my blue belt all the way to the black belt, I'm inside the school training with Gordo, Soca, Draculino, Renzo, Ralph Gracie, Ryan Gracie, Nino Chambry, Roleta. So we, that generation, that's the thing, it was the Gracie Barra, when I started training, it was Carlos Gracie Jr. and Jean-Jacques Machado, right? So everybody was a blue belt, all those guys, well known today, they were blue and purple belts, right? When I was a blue belt, Soca, Draculino, it was a purple belt. I think Gordo was a brown, Sonequinho was a brown belt. So Jean-Jacques left the U.S., so Carlinhos stayed with the Gracie Barra. And because we have a higher belt was Renzo Gracie, he left the U.S. Jean-Jacques, right, he was our instructor, but he was the main guy fighting, representing the Gracie Barra. He left. All the Machado brothers had left. So we didn't have any black belt to us to see, like, all right, this is the guy, like, besides our instructor. So all those guys left to U.S., so our team, I think it was a change happened on the team, because instead it would be like, and Carson was the main school, right? They go in school and beat everybody, right? They have all those big names. So we start training, really get united and training real hard. And my generation as a blue belt become a purple. The generation as a brown belt become a purple belt become a brown. And then from 91 to 94, there was a change in our team. And, we start changing, we start dominating all the tournaments. And the rest of history, right? From Gracie Barra, all the titles, we got the world championship, all this stuff. And that was a very special moment. But pretty much we have to help each other, because we didn't have a strong black belts competing at that time for us to push us. But
what was the one thing that changed? What was it like? If you had to go back and really think about it, what was the one impactful thing that really made that huge change for you guys?
I think the change was Carlos Gracie Jr. Because when the Jean-Jacques was there, Jean-Jacques was an amazing instructor, right? It was when he left the U.S., a lot of people was very, like people think about stop training. People like, I don't know what to do. And Carlinhos wasn't that present, right? Like he was just, because he has Jean-Jacques as the main guy teaching class, he was there maybe 2 times a week. So we see a change when Jean-Jacques left. He took over. First time he really took over, at least when I was there at the school. And at the same time, he was starting his federation, right? Because when you have one federation, Rio de Janeiro, and Robson Gracie was the president of the federation. So Carlinhos started the Brazilian Confederation, and he wants to do the nationals, all this stuff. So I think the combination for him organize the federation, and he wants to have his team be the number one. So I remember he had meeting with us, right? Like, look, we have Carson Gracie. Our goal is to beat the number one. We need to train you. Like the team start training in a different way for tournaments. And he was the guy to push everybody to this, right? We can find some old pictures, and there's a place in Rio de Janeiro called Pedra da Gávea. It's a mountain where we're doing exercise. So every Saturday, the team together going to training, right? You want to make sure, because Brazil, it's Rio de Janeiro in Brazil is a fun place, right? To be young, it's a very fun place. So he wants to make sure every Saturday in the morning, he wants to keep us on a workout. So nobody want to go out Saturday night because we're so tired. So we have a bunch of young people, and he took that drive that we have and put us in the right direction. And from that time, in 10 years of work, the school becoming one of the number one school, not just in competition, but as instructors too, right? We have a real good instructors and fighters.
Do you think that kind of drive and that kind of training ethic exists today between the different teams? I mean, obviously we have by far more than 3 or 4 teams all around the world, right? Or even if you look at US or even just Brazil, there's by far more than that. But do you think that kind of work ethic exists today in the jiu-jitsu community, where people get together, drive, really have this goal, and they do anything that's necessary to achieve it?
Yes, no, for sure. That's a place like this, but the difference, like, right, things are different now. Jiu-jitsu is more professional. So we have people getting in those places because maybe somebody paying you money, right? I'll come train here. I'll give a sponsor you this. In our time, everything was about passion, right? We are doing the tournament because we want to do it. And, we didn't know that this is going to happen. We didn't know being a champion, we're going to be able to make seminars. We're going to be able to leave Brazil and live in another place. It was just, we just want to do this because, we want to compete. We want to represent our school. That was it. So I think the difference, maybe today we're not going to see a group of people getting together for the same reason as a passion. And we as a team, right? It was the one thing I like to say, Barra, it's a neighborhood in Brazil. And it's a rich neighborhood, right? So it's not a bad neighborhood. So Carlinhos, when he moved to Barra, because Carlinhos lived in another place, and he started Gracie Barra, so the expectation of people in Rio that, okay, you're in a good area, you're probably going to have some rich people training you guys, but you're not going to have fighters because they're going to be weak, right? Fighters, they must be coming from a bad background, that kind of stuff. And he proved that he created an environment, a very intense environment for people who want to compete, but a very friendly environment. So we have a people with money there. We have lawyers. We have judges. We have a bunch of people there, but with a family environment and respect environment. But we training hard, right? And it was not about one guy, one person. It was the team, right? So that was proof, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from, it's the environment you create, you know, it's possible, right? You don't need to be a bad boy to be a to be a good fighter, right?
Is that how jiu-jitsu was viewed prior to that, before that? That jiu-jitsu was for these bad guys, the guys who get in trouble. These had to be the fighters, quote unquote, versus everybody, you know, jiu-jitsu for everybody, or everybody can do jiu-jitsu?
Yes, it's you know, the media in Brazil tried to put this way. I think one of the reasons jiu-jitsu has this bad reputation, it was related to Vale Tudo, MMA, right? So the Vale Tudo, just like here, when they start here, people start seeing it in a bad way, right? We didn't have a marketing machine like a UFC to change the view, right? You know, this is the real people that are doing this, right? So I think the MMA brought a lot of bad reputation to jiu-jitsu, right? This is the crazy guys doing this fight. They are, you know, they're bad people, that kind of stuff, right? So people like, you know, we have a lot of discrimination. You know, sometimes I have to tell people, oh, what do you do? I do judo for people in my family. Because I don't want to tell I do jiu-jitsu because they're going to assume me like, you know, you're a bad person, right? Oh, we're doing, because they, you know, they didn't think about people in the gi. A lot of times they think people about with the speedo fighting, blood, right? Like in a crazy fight, right? So that kind of happened.
Did you experience Vale Tudo?
No, you know.
How come?
Yeah, so my goal was to do, always I want to do a MMA fight, right? In Brazil, like, you know, the environment I was training, you do MMA once you get the black belt, right? So we believe there's amateur tournaments. Once you become a black belt, then you can do the transition to do MMA. And again, going back to the passion, right? There's no money involved. So we're probably gonna do MMA to represent your martial arts, right? You're there not to make the money. You're not there not to represent the team. Like, no, you're there to represent jiu-jitsu. It's jiu-jitsu against somebody, right? So I always have that on my mind. So I got my black belt in 1996. So in 2000, that was when I was playing, like I was fighting a bunch of tournaments, and I was planning to do a transition to MMA. But I never want to be an MMA fighter. My plan was to do 5 fights, maybe 3, 5 fights, just to see how it is, right? And as a representative of my martial art, you know, I felt like I need to, you know, do this, right? So I moved to US in 2000, start teaching classes here, start training. I was set up a fight in Guan. So I was training for this fight. And 3 weeks before, I blew up my knee. Boom, I hurt my knee, right? That was the year my daughter was born. I was starting my school at the same time. It was extremely hard. And that's when I decided, like, all right, I need to stop, focus on my school, focus on my family. And then I never did the fight, right? I decided to change. So that
everything works out for a reason, right?
Yes.
Do you believe that sometimes things happen out of our control, but yet there's a reason behind it?
So So the funny story, you know, like the thing is about this, I was in a transition, right? I have my visa and I was in transition for a green card. So I have a real bad lawyer messed up my case, but I didn't know that. So I'm just trying to make short the story. So I applied to get my green card. So this is something very hard. We have to prove a bunch of stuff. And the way I did it was a special ability. So you have to prove you have a special ability, bunch of stuff. So I get to approve for that, right? So this good. So sign up all the stuff, pay all the fees, and I'm waiting to get my visa, all the kind of stuff. So during that process, that was the fight. So I was supposed to go to Guam, but my lawyer, my bad lawyer, he never sent the documentation. I signed it, but we have a window. All right, you accept, so you have to pay the fees, and you have a month and a half to send all this stuff. So he never said, he missed that window for whatever reason. And I didn't know that. So if I leave from that time, I have to go to fight. And on the way back to Guam, I'll probably be the first time I discover, hey, your visa is denied. You know, we don't have the visa to come back. And then problem, they're going to see me as, you know, and if that situation happened that way, I'll be going back to Brazil and I'll stay away from America for 10 years before I can apply. But I only discovered this 2 years after, because I was talking to the lawyer, hey, where's my documentation, all this stuff? He didn't answer. I went to another lawyer, and then he saw the stuff like, man, you're not going to believe what happened. And then he showed me what happened, and I didn't know the situation. So I have to apply again, doing all this stuff, another lawyer, all this stuff. But that was right on that time. So I was very upset when that happened, my knee, all that kind of stuff. Got depressed, oh my God, you know, because I have my fight, sign up contract, I have, you know, money to get paid, all this stuff. But when I discovered that, I was like, wow.
Yeah. Blessing in disguise.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was a blast.
So you blow your knee out, you can't go. If you did go, you would never come back. You would probably not live and do what you do today.
Exactly.
And you discover all of this 2 years later,
Yes.
completely by accident.
Yes.
I mean, that's mind-blowing to me.
Yes. Crazy, right? That's
Crazy.
That's really said that kind of things happen for a reason. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Was this the time when you came to the U.S., were you still thinking about law enforcement, or was that when you were back in Brazil?
No, that's what back in Brazil.
Back in Brazil?
Yeah. Okay. And that's the thing. That's funny because I was talking to my wife about this today. Like, how will be my life in Brazil if we were in Brazil? And, you know, because I have a long history with the law enforcement. My father was a law enforcement police chief in Rio, well known in Rio, all this stuff. And then, you know, when your father has the position he has, you know, a lot of people expect me to do the same thing. So, but I always, you know, when I was 17, that's when I make my decision. I want to do jiu-jitsu, right? That's when I make the decision. And it was a crazy decision because there's no career there, right? But as a 17, it makes sense, right? Because I remember I went to talk to Gordo. The year I got my purple belt, that's the year Roberto Gordo got his black belt. And I remember I talked to Gordo. I said, Gordo, you know, I think I want to do jiu-jitsu for my life. How's your life? And he looked at me. Yeah, I have money to buy my food. I have money to put gas on my car. And he said that. I was like, all right, sounds good. I want to do this too.
Yeah, at 17, that's all you need, right?
Exactly.
That's all you need.
Exactly.
What did your dad say when you told him
no,
you're not going to follow his footsteps?
Yeah, you know, when I was 15, I want to be a professional surfer. And I remember he looked at me, just laugh.
That's how you got your nickname, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then 17, you know, I didn't say that to him, right? I make my decision on my own, but I knew, you know, but looking back, going back to, you know, if I was in Brazil, it would be real hard to make a leave from jiu-jitsu. So I'll be going to law enforcement, and unfortunately in Brazil, we're going to law enforcement. It's pretty much going to a war, right? Because you know, there's the violence, all this stuff. So right. I'll be 100% a different person, right? And my father passed away. It was 65 in 2000. That's when he passed away. And you know, I'm pretty much to see what his life, you know, how his stressful was. He had a problem not sleeping. He has a bunch of stuff. So I'll have my father life, and it wasn't, you know, he did a bunch of good stuff, but it wasn't a good life in environment, right? So that will be 100% different, right?
Yeah, and now you're here with your daughter, and yeah, fantastic.
Everything works out for a reason.
Yes, yes.
I want to ask you something. So in here we have in US, we have these opportunities, and obviously you are one of the very good examples of, you know, immigrating here, coming down to US and using the skill that you have to create a career for yourself, right? You have your students, you promote black belts, you teach, you have DVDs and other things. Would these opportunities exist in Brazil today? or the jiu-jitsu is not as popular? And if so, why do you think that is?
So today, it's been 20 years I've been living here. Things change in Brazil. Just for you guys, everything in Brazil is harder compared to here, right? So life, it's not fair. So it's today it's possible to live in Brazil for jiu-jitsu, yes, but it's gonna be it's everything is harder. To have a business in Brazil, forget about martial arts. Any kind of business is extremely hard, right? Things like not making sense. It's a different world, to put it this way, right? But yes, it is possible. Jiu-jitsu is different, right? From 20 years ago, from US, from now, there's way more opportunity. For sure, in Brazil is more opportunity, but really building something bigger than you need, I believe you need to leave from Brazil, and not because this is a problem just for the martial art. It's the whole country. It's a bunch of stuff. It's very complicated, very complicated.
Yeah, but I find this very interesting in a sense that if things were different in Brazil, black people such as yourself wouldn't come to US, and then I wouldn't learn jiu-jitsu. Gary wouldn't learn jiu-jitsu. Millions of other people wouldn't learn jiu-jitsu, and we wouldn't be able to do what we are doing today. So in a sense, things worked out the way how they did. But if yourself or, Carlos Gracie or Machado brothers or Renzo Gracie or all these big names, if they didn't come here, we wouldn't have clue what the hell was going on.
Yeah, but I'm going to add something. But at the same time, Jiu-Jitsu is doing better in Brazil because live from Brazil, right? Because once you move to US or move outside, you're going in a place, you have to be more professional, right? So, and that professional helping to doing better in business, to doing better service, and that somehow that went back to Brazil. So it helped each other, you know what I mean? Because maybe you just stay in Brazil, because the way I learn jiu-jitsu, the way we train, it changed now, evolved, right? And I believe evolved because left from Brazil, and those amazing instructors left, and they have to adapt to here, how I can, teach jiu-jitsu a better way for this place here. How I do this stuff. Oh, we got to be more professional. You got to be on time. Right? Forget about the Brazilian time. This is the service. We got to be more professional and stuff. And
there's such thing as Brazilian time?
Yeah, Brazilian time, yeah. So that helping to people like, oh, this is how we're doing stuff here outside. And this how people make, like the martial arts in the US is way more organized than a lot of places in the world, right? In the business side, right? So people learn that, bring it back to Brazil and apply that. So it's help each other, So it's, that's life, right? It's life.
Big circle.
Yeah, big circle.
Everything. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, do you still play Spider Guard? Like
yes.
daily? Is that your thing now?
That's my thing. But that's the thing.
It didn't change after the 30 years?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm like...
No. That's the thing, talk about Gordo, right? Gordo is half guard guy, right?
Yeah.
Then you train him, you think, oh, he's going to do half guard. The place we train, we have so many good guys. We cannot afford to be good in just one thing, just doing one thing, right? It'll be possible. Spider Guard is something specific, but once I sweep, I need to go on top. Once they close the distance, I need to do butterfly. So you have to do everything. So we can't train all day doing Spider Guard. You can do all day doing half guard. So I was in the environment, and I have to learn everything and go around. So yeah, I play Spider Guard on the bottom. I play butterfly. I play close guard. It's happen every day, right?
Well, I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. That is not. I tell my students, jiu-jitsu is not cookie cutter. It's there are so many different avenues and areas where you have to focus. Being really good at one thing, it'll get you somewhere, but it's not going to get you all the way everywhere. And having a basic understanding of everything is critical to your success.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Listen, we've been at this for nearly an hour. We do one thing at the end of the show, and we didn't tell you this. Is a little surprise. We have 5
All right.
questions. We have 5 questions, Corey. Gary's going to ask you 5 questions. Try to answer them, as short as possible. First things that comes to mind. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's kind of interesting story. Feed off of that. But
Okay.
we ask the same questions to everybody. So we are wondering how you will answer this. So we're going to put you on a spot here for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to come up with a name for this, right?
Yeah, we
Instead,
should.
we need something. All right. So, and I can't believe it's been an hour already. This was great. What was it like the first time you stepped on the mat?
Well, I'm laughing because
Everybody laughs.
yeah, because it's been so long. And okay, I remember the first, because before jiu-jitsu was judo, right? So jiu-jitsu, I remember I stepped in and I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know exactly what jiu-jitsu is. And I remember the first training, I hold somebody in a honga sakatami leg lock position, and the training didn't stop. It keep going. And then, like I said, this is fun. I can keep going on the ground. like I don't have to hold somebody for 30 seconds, stop, and go back. So I love it. The first time I stepped on the mat.
You're referring to judo rolls, right?
Yes.
Because
Right, yeah.
judo, shoulder touch the ground, and
There's
the
no
knee
pin.
is over,
Exactly.
right?
It's over.
This isn't part of the 5 questions, but what was more intimidating walking out on judo or jiu-jitsu?
I think it was jiu-jitsu. Because but the reason is because I went to that place, there was no kids class, right? There was a kid and an adult.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, oh my God, right?
Sure, yeah. I think anybody would panic. All right, number 2. What is your most rewarding achievement?
My school. To be able to build in my school.
Great. Have you ever wanted to quit?
Yes. Remember when I was a purple belt and I got tapped? I got tapped and then I started crying and then I said, all right, I'm going to stop training. And then the next day it was over. That was the only time. Did
anybody snap you out of it or was that something you did on your own?
So the next day, this was Sunday. On Monday, so I used to live 2 blocks from the Gracie Barra. Carlinhos coming to my house. He knocked on the door. I went down. I heard you're gonna stop training. I said, yeah, I trained so much. It's like, and then he look at me like, who said to you the other guy training more than you? And then I look at him like, you're right. I don't know. then I went back to training. Yeah. So my instructor, Carlos Gracie Jr., he came and talked to me. Yes.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Can you describe the feeling you had when you received your black belt?
Wow, it's very hard to describe because this is the day one. Like I started training, I knew I would be a black belt one day, but I put this in the back of my head for a long time because in Brazil, you train, you don't ask about belts, right? I felt like I put my head down and train. And the day I got my black belt, I felt like my head was up and I looked and I breathe, like, wow, I'm here. Like you're going into the mountain, right? And you don't want to see the end. I'm just looking and moving. That's the day I felt like I put my head up. And now I start looking and see.
Now you can see everything?
Yes.
Yeah, you're at the top.
Did you have a tear in your eye when you got your black belt?
No. I was in an environment like if I cry, people will make fun of me. So I there's no crying on the mat.
No crying in jiu-jitsu, just like baseball. All right. And last, but definitely not least, you're an old school guy, so this is important. Do you wash your belt?
No.
Nah.
True. Special now, people that they say you gotta wash everything. Like it's still like not the belt.
No. And is that for the old superstitious reasons?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, just so you know, we are now back to 50-50 on the questions of do you or do you not wash your belt.
Some do, some don't.
Yep, it's back at even.
It's always an interesting question. Professor, thank you for being here. Thank you for great stories. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and this beautiful journey with us for the past hour. Where can people find you if they want to talk to you more? Where they can find your academy, where they can find your team? Share some of the information with us.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I almost said something in Portuguese. That's a sign I'm getting tired. So I have a school. I live in California, South California, in Orange County. I have a school, Yorba Linda, in Orange County. That's I'm daily teaching every day. Beside that, our school is a team of the Ring. Ring is a new team that we formed from old school guys from Gracie Barra. We have this team. We got together for I believe 2 years ago now. Yeah, it's gonna be 2 years, and that's pretty much we from the 90s to all the way to 2000. We have a very special team. Slowly, for different reasons, our people start left from Gracie Barra to have their own school. Some will have a personal problem. Some want to start their own team, and now it was a way back to our team getting together. Everyone has their own school, but as a competition, we all the schools fighting under the ring, and we have a big plans, right? So today we have 20 schools direct under ring. Besides ever the school, like I have my school, but I have 90 schools affiliated with me. Some of my students. So we have probably close to 50 schools already on the ring. And our goal is to participate in all big tournaments and to help each other. So that's and the way to find is social media, Facebook, Mauricio Tinguinha, and Instagram, Mauricio Tinguinha. That still be the easy way.
All right,
Beautiful.
fantastic.
Beautiful. Gary, let's wrap this up. I mean, this was an awesome one. I love these stories from Brazil and all. So
so do I. And I'm really happy to learn. I always thought Spider Guard was for the taller, lankier guy, and it's nice to know that a little somebody with short legs and arms like me can get involved. So I've been getting schooled in it lately, and maybe it's time for me to turn it around a little bit. So I appreciate it, and thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you,
Beautiful, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.